Welcome to All Things Chiropractic.
Well, welcome to another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
I'm Dr. Mark Davini.
And today we have a wonderful friend of Tools of Practice of mine in studio, Deborah Zolla. Hello, Deb.
Hey, Paul, it's wonderful to be here. And Mark, there's no place I'd rather be than here.
Oh, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you.
So, it's the first for us to have a guest in studio.
What an honor. I appreciate that.
Yes. You should be completely honored. Just kidding.
And
No,
we'll
I'm not kidding.
leave it at that.
Yeah.
So we're titling this segment, by the way, Shining the Light on Deb Zolla.
Oh.
Isn't that cute? Don't you use
I like
Shining the
that.
Light with your monthly or your...
In light of.
In light of,
It's
yeah.
my newsletter.
Yeah.
Yes, I like shining the light.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
Yes.
So why Deborah Zolla today? Why? Well, not just because you're a good friend of myself, of Dr. Davini and Tools of Practice, but how long have you been in sales now?
Sales? My gosh, since high school. I mean, we're talking...
You're going to date yourself
No,
now
we're
for
talking
the whole
a long
audience?
Laser sales since January 2000.
Right.
Wait, can I just point out how nice Paul is being to her when she references her age and how much he beats me up every time I mention my age?
I'm just glad you're here, Mark.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
you know me.
That's
That's just what we do, dude.
That's just what we do.
Yeah. If you hear that, it's all directed to him from me, by the way.
Any age-related remark is mine.
So I'm trying to think back of when we first met, and it might have been at a trade association conference
It was.
years ago. And it's true now, as it was then, Deb, you are a first-class woman because you were dressed to the nines, fashionable, but very, very, not just put together, but polite. And you stood out for the vendors, not to say that much about the vendors, because some of them, of course, are wonderful, but, you really did, have that energy. So I don't know if that's something you've trained yourself to do, if it's just part of who you are.
Well, first of all, that's really nice to hear. I appreciate that. I think you're born with who you are, and then you fine tune it.
Okay.
And if you're smart, you try to lose the bad habits along the way.
Why did she look at me?
Yeah. Some of us have, and some of us haven't.
She just turned straight to me.
Only to do with the conversation we had previously.
No, I'm liking where this is going, Deb. Just keep it up.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, that's funny. So give us a little bit of background starting from now. You are with Avant Wellness. Tell us what Avant Wellness is.
Avant Wellness is a wonderful, wonderful company that creates and manufactures low-level lasers for the medical community and also for consumers with their doctor's recommendation. And that's what they do. But what they do elegantly is their lasers are outstanding. They are FDA-cleared. They're made in California. Even repairs go right to California. They are small. They're portable. In fact, I have one here.
I could see that.
Right in my hand. I took it right out of my eyeglass case that was in my purse. And they're portable, the dual wavelength. They do so much for so many people. And so you can imagine a trained or a highly skilled doctor with this technology can only be more appealing to their patients.
And we know that a lot of your sales base is chiropractors, right? I mean, obviously, you've exhibited it at our conferences and shows, and
yes,
but not only chiropractors, of course.
Correct. But I would say chiropractors put us on the map. I find that out of most of the professions we deal with, they're the most open-minded for other modalities, and so they're not just. I don't want to pigeonhole anybody, but they're open to a lot more. They want a broad toolkit.
Alternative.
Yes, they want to help their patients. Correct. But I find it's not just a profession, although I would have to say maybe because I'm a chiropractic patient, we work well together, and I find them really open-minded. But it's not just the profession, but the person. And so there are people in all persuasions, whether it's massage therapy like you, Paul, whether it's chiropractic like you, Mark, whether it's a veterinarian, physical therapist, acupuncturists all of a sudden are booming right now in our industry. And so it's people who are open-minded to helping their patients in a way that, maybe sets them apart from other people.
Interesting. So that actually, it brings up a point. We were talking about doing an episode on the chiropractic straight and mixer conversation, right?
Oh, it's a perfect segue in a sense for that one when we do record it, because it's really kind of bringing all the different, we'll say, practices into focus. And when you put them all on a continuum, they go all the way from the super, what used to be called straights, those that just adjust, all the way up to very, very distinct specialty practices that do only one or two things that are outside of the normal chiropractic realm. So yeah, this is perfect, because certainly lasers now have become, and correct me if I'm wrong, the most researched modality out there and proven to be the most effective modality out there.
I would tend to agree. And I think when I started selling lasers back in January 2008, if I remember correctly, there were less than 3,000 peer-reviewed articles on PubMed. And today there's over 10,000, and they're growing exponentially. So
Wow.
it is absolutely on fire. It's beautiful. I think that a lot of the consumers are driving the sales for the doctors because they're asking, my friend had laser therapy. Do you offer laser therapy? And so it's the knowledge base is out there, and the networking is out there, and people are talking about it. So it's a wonderful place to be.
So how did you get into photobiomodulation or laser sales yourself? Like, what brought you there?
I love my journey. For many years, without a number, have been in the fashion industry.
Again, she looked at me.
As only a friend would do. I started I went from fashion to laser. And the bridge is this. I started as a makeup artist, licensed esthetician, color consultant, model instructor, fashion show producer, director, commentator. I wrote dress codes for corporations and delivered seminars at the front of the room to show people how, what professional looked like and what casual looked like, business casual. And then at some point I got disenchanted with the fashion industry. I felt that people were changing, and they didn't have as much pride in their appearance as they used to. And dress down day, business casual, really is what started it. Everyone thought they could do business casual. They got a company logo T-shirt, but it just...
Did they show up in their underwear or something?
Pajamas.
Pajamas.
Yes.
Pajamas.
And
where was that place?
Hopefully it's closed by now. But it
closed or closed?
Closed it. I got a little disenchanted, and the culture was changing, but I was too, and it was time for me to move on. And I'd always been interested in alternative health. I always took vitamins and supplements, and tried not to take unnecessary medications, unnecessary drugs, even aspirin. And I was leaning in that direction. And so one day, when I was especially disenchanted, I was looking through my aesthetic journals, and oh my gosh, there must have been 20, 30 ads for lasers. And I told my husband, I need to sell a laser, because that's trending upward. And one by one, I went through the ads. I called all of the companies, and none of them would hire me because I had no laser background. And aside from being a licensed esthetician, I really had no medical background either. And so I...
No, wait a minute.
Go ahead. Yep.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
You took the initiative to call these companies cold.
Yes.
With zero experience.
Yes.
And say, I want to sell your product.
Yes.
And none of them identified the fact that you might be good at sales because look what you're doing already.
That's
You're
correct.
boldly going into these companies and saying, I want to sell your product. So clearly you're someone who can cold call.
And it's clear they didn't understand what a salesperson's primary characteristic should be assertiveness.
Right?
You're absolutely right. I wish I had thought of that. I would have said that to them then.
I mean, it happens for a reason,
Well,
but
one
there's
previous
an irony
sales
there.
manager said I had no fear, and I think maybe that's the reason why. You got nothing to lose. Just go
Yeah.
ahead and try.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I was
Oh,
curious irony there,
Yeah. Well, I at some point I was not doing. I was batting without a zero, not having any success. And as I went to my chiropractor at the time, and he asked how job search was going, I said, "Well, not great. I'd really like to sell a laser, but no one will hire me." He held up a laser and he said, "Have you tried this company?" And I said, "No, I've not heard of them." And he said, "I'm going to make the call." He said, "You talk to this person." And after about 3 months of negotiation, they hired me because I had no laser sales experience, and they liked my skill set of assertiveness and the way I would handle myself. And they said, we can't teach enthusiasm, we can't teach ethics, but we can teach you how to sell a laser. And that's where I started.
Did you say it was
Wow.
3 months?
Nice.
After negotiation of 3 months.
3-month interview, basically?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. That's vetting, I have to say.
Oh, my.
I was determined.
Eventually, they saw the light.
Eventually.
There's the pun we were looking for.
But
So, in all the years that you've been doing this, and you've been connecting with a lot of different professions, I would imagine, not just chiropractors or acupuncturists and things like that, which can you tell us? I know this is called All Things Chiropractic Podcast. However, I'm curious, is there any profession in particular that you interact with that you can close the sale either faster, easier, or is it really just dependent?
it really depends. I love working with chiropractors because I feel a kinship to them because I am a patient and I see the wonderful miracles that they produce. So that's just, I would have to say, number one. But there are so many that are rising in their wake. Massage therapists, licensed acupuncturists. Veterinarians are a very strong market. We are pursuing that market, but I feel that I have the most relationship with chiropractors.
Do you feel that maybe chiropractors are a little more entrepreneurial in their spirit? Because we've had to be chief cook and bottle washer from day one. We're business people, we're the practitioner, we empty the baskets, you name it. So we relate to the fact that you're coming in with a product that has to be understood. And then we buy that product, but then we also have to make our patients understand that product so that, in a sense, they buy it also.
That's true. That's a very good point. For you to offer any treatment, your patient has to buy into it. They have to feel confident in it. But I would think that by the time you're promoting another service or a modality, you're so highly credible, and your patients come to you and they keep on coming to you because they believe you. So it would probably be a very unusual thing for them not to be confident in that you're promoting.
Yeah, we're used to presenting ourselves and making people understand something they didn't understand coming in, chiropractic. In this case, maybe even laser, as opposed to, say, other practitioners in the medical world, for example. You just sort of show up and they just assume everything that they need you to know about them, you already know.
That's interesting. And I think also what's in your favor as a chiropractor is the power of touch. It's one thing to be a doctor that has a dialogue, or maybe uses an instrument like a stethoscope, for example. But it's another whole other feeling when you're using your hands and you have that power of touch. Automatically the boundaries go down.
Oh, absolutely. I remember going to an exam with a friend of mine, and we sat across the desk from this doctor for over 25 minutes, and he never came around from the back of the desk.
Oh.
And that was called an exam.
Oh.
And you realize we just went through this whole encounter, and he never touched the patient.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
That's not uncommon.
That's a little sad.
It is. So you're right. We have a big advantage that we touch people, though we will refer to our podcast on appropriate ways in which to touch people. That's one we've already put out there.
Versus
So,
not. Yeah, right.
yeah.
Right.
So, sales, some might say, well, you have a salesperson on your podcast today. Why? Well, as Dr. Davini was saying or alluding to, chiropractic is sales. A lot of things are sales, especially when you don't have a name or a reputation yet. And that word of mouth, which is always, of course, the best advertising you can get. So I'm curious, this might be a tough question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. This is tough as nails question, Deb. Look out. Here's the gotcha moment. You might want to run.
You didn't know this was like
Yeah.
30 minutes.
And I trusted you.
Yeah. So
She didn't notice the door is
Yeah.
locked and there's no way out.
So what's the best sales advice you think you've ever received?
Before I tell you that, because that's a great question, your first point, we all sell, we all buy every single day. Every time you recommend a restaurant, your favorite toothpaste, a car, we all sell. And what we're doing is we're conveying, what's important to us, what we like, and we're trying to not persuade someone, but convey that to someone. And so that it's sales. We all do it. And so the best advice I ever got, and gosh, there's so much, but the one that comes to mind is from a sales coach who has since passed away, Phil Reardon. And he said, you're looking for people who are looking for you. And I love that because not everything and not every person is the right fit. We remember back in our dating days, we're all married here, in our dating days when the relationship just didn't work out. There's nothing wrong with that person or us. It wasn't the right fit.
Speak for yourself. It was always them. Always.
Well, obviously with you it was them.
And I just got married 8 months ago.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not the right example.
Yeah, no, I liked it.
When I was dating.
Yeah.
But so even with sales, you have to know your product. You have to know, what problems it will solve, what problems it doesn't solve. And when you know that, then you're looking for the right people who are looking for you.
That's perfect. And it fits the chiropractic world exactly.
Great.
It's funny you say that because in, I don't know, one of our sessions, we talk about that not every patient fits your practice and vice versa, and that's okay. Like,
it's one of my favorite sayings was I was not for everybody.
I bet that was a favorite saying.
My
I didn't say that.
I know. No, you didn't even look at me.
Did everyone tell you to embrace that for some reason, Mark?
Right, I embrace that. Everybody thinks it's a one-sided street where a patient has to come in and accept you. But in practice, I have to accept them also. I wasn't looking to just have a patient. I wanted a patient that enhanced my life also.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you feel very depleted at the end of the day.
It's called burnout.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we talked about this a week or two ago when I was begging you to come on our show. And I didn't expect the answer that I got from you. So I'm going to ask you the question again. How do you deal with failure or doors slammed in your face and things like that? As a salesperson, it must happen.
Yes, but failure is a mindset, and there's really no failure. It's either you win or you learn. I firmly believe that, and so I don't take it personally, and I haven't gotten the door slammed in my face in a long time. Once I got a chair thrown at me, that was a long time ago.
Okay, wait a minute. How heavy was the chair? Did it hit you?
It did not hit me. No, I was
Here,
on my way
take
out.
a seat.
Are you kidding me?
Not that kind of heavy chair.
It's flying through the world.
All right. I gotta sidestep and ask you just a little bit. How did that happen? How did a chair end up?
The person was having a really bad day.
Clearly, right?
And as I cold called, walked into their office, and they probably had enough, and they just said, "I'm not interested. Get out of here." And I was not going to, converse at that point. I could see the body language; it was not good, and so I turned around to leave. And as the door was closing, I could hear and see the chair being thrown. It was like a small folding chair, not heavy. Even hit me.
Let's not minimize the fact that someone threw a piece of furniture at you, but okay.
I haven't thought about that for a long
Wow.
time. But the question was, and now I can't remember what the question was because I had another answer.
So we were talking about the best sales advice you ever received.
And after that,
And
Yeah.
learning to do
Failure.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So it is a mindset, and so if you feel that every experience is worthwhile, then you will learn something from it.
You know, when I was in practice, I had a similar concept that if for any reason a patient left me, I looked at that as me not meeting their needs in some way. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it was a need I was willing to fulfill, but I did accept the responsibility that for every patient that left my office, it was because I didn't fulfill a need that they had. And I had to assess what that need was and then make a decision whether or not I was going to change my behavior, change my protocol, procedures, or whatever, or accept the fact that that's just the way it's going to be. So you did. You don't fail. You learn.
Yeah, you do.
I love that.
And it's there's almost two circumstances here. So there's failure in a cold call, for example. But there's also, if I have a customer who's not doing well, I feel that that's more of a failure than if I lose a sale. Because I feel as though by the time we've gotten to the point where they're a customer, I need to have helped them. And most people are really, really happy. But there are some. And sometimes it's because I didn't have the time with them that I wanted. And sometimes it's because they didn't hold up their end of the bargain either. That they just didn't do it. So one particular circumstance, a gal purchased a laser, but only used it like every year. It's absolutely crazy. And so every year she would call and say, I need a tutorial. I forget how to use it. And I finally, after this happening a few times, I realized it's not my fault per se. And I had to convey that to her in a way that she would understand because she needed to take ownership of it and was not. And so I said, if you buy a car from the Honda dealership, you don't ask them to teach you how to drive it. And if you buy the car and drive it home and a year later, you decide to take it out of the driveway again and drive it again for maybe the second time, but you forgot, you don't go back to the Honda dealership and say, I forgot how to drive it. Would you show me again? So there's ownership that it really the best sales relationships are personal relationships. You know, everyone, they want to learn. They're willing to do what they should do. I'm willing to help them do what they cannot do, but not do what they can do, but they just don't want to do.
Exactly.
Do you think that that's where, because those that know or are members of Tools of Practice or customers know that you do a wonderful job every month of providing webinar education that we host on the second or third Wednesday of every month, right? On PBMT. Yeah, the third Wednesday now because of me. So do you think that's where that sort of part of that came from, that customer support approach that you had, that you wanted to support those that have a laser and want to explore using it to its fullest?
I think the webcasts are so important. People want ongoing education.
Yeah.
And so there are books they can read. There are articles on PubMed they can look at, but they like to see it in action. And honestly, if not for Tools of Practice and your willingness to do this every month, we would be falling short there, I think.
Well, you're welcome. But it's funny because the most questions we get, and now our hosts, like, our presenters like Dr. Amy or Amy Cutter or others, they do a good job now of putting in the protocol, because that's probably the biggest question we get at the end is they want more protocol. They want more how do we do what you're talking about, right? I mean, we get a lot of those questions. It kind of led to us starting pbmt.info so that we could archive all of these so people can watch them. You give them a nice replay link for a year, but we've been doing this for long, and I don't even know how long we've been doing this webcast.
Since September 2020.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize that. So the catalog has built, which is great. And Dr. Amy and Amy Cutter, who are staple presenters, are awesome, but these other ones, when you find new presenters. It's funny because usually when they send their information, they know it's a 50-minute webcast, but boy, they give us like 4 hours worth of material. But it's great because it's better to pare somebody down than to.
And here's a takeaway for anybody listening to this. This is somebody that has been doing this since 2020.
Mm-hmm.
There's no end to educating people.
No.
There's no end to sometimes re-educating people.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole point is that the understanding of what you do isn't a one and done.
No, and you're right about the protocol, but the how-to. The language of laser, yes, there's all of the frequency and wavelength and fluence and all of that. But what people really want to know is, where do I point it, for how long, how often, and what can I expect? That's the language of laser. It's the before and after of the pain scale, of the wellness scale. And so what these webinars do on a monthly basis is they take a new topic and sometimes a new speaker, although Dr. Regami is superb, and so is Amy Cutter, and we have a lot of repeat speakers, but we have new ones as well. And we try to communicate to them that they can show all the science in the world, which is super important. But at the end of the day, the patient or the customer, they need to know how to copy it. What do I do? Just tell me what is step one. Turn the laser on, but now what? How do I get the same effect that you're talking about?
Yeah. It's like, present the protocol, give them the science, they'll read it later, as far as I'm concerned. So times have changed. I think we can all agree with that, right, Doc?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, as we flex,
Again, talking about age.
yeah, let's talk about time. If you want to translate it to age, that's So, but for you like everybody and everything. Tell us, what have you seen in sales that has changed over time? Like, whether it's how you approach things or how the customers are.
What's changed, I believe, is that buyers have they have access to a lot of knowledge. And so by the time I'm talking with someone, a prospect, they have a lot of knowledge. They already have a very nice foundation of laser. And so then it's my happy task to see if this laser is correct for them, their needs, or which model is best for them, if at all. And so sales is different because the salesperson, I think, has to be really in the know. They have to be highly credible. They have to know why they believe what they believe. And I'll quote Albert Einstein because it makes sense here. I love. And I used to quote him often, especially in the beginning, when he would say, I don't have to know the answer, but I do know where to find it. And so by a salesperson being highly credible, I don't have to know everything, but I do have to have a resource at my fingertips that I can tell people the information that they need, or put them in touch with knowledgeable people like yourselves, who can help them. So sales has changed because the knowledge is at their fingertips. And then, of course, you've got AI, too, which speeds it up.
So the buyer is really way more informed than they used to be in the past.
Yes.
So the sophistication of the selling, in a sense, is at a higher level because they expect more than just the basics, because they're going into the conversation already knowing the basics.
Yes. So my job is I believe my job is to take what they know and help them to consolidate it and focus it, and see, again, maybe, draw it to the Avant laser if it's the right one. And most times it is, because it's just an outstanding laser.
And that's kind of a universal instruction for anybody selling anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Take
agree.
them from where they are, bring them to where they need to be,
right,
and hope that they understand what it is you're trying to tell them or sell them.
Oh gosh, that's so perfect. And maybe another way to put that even is you take what they.
Wait a minute, I thought you said it was perfect.
It was perfect. Which only inspired me.
Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
To make it more perfect, sir.
You take what they don't know and you help them relate it to what they do know. And so there's a lot of analogy and pictures, stories, and testimonials and all, and that all helps.
And I hope people that are listening understand that sales are sales. And everything that Deb is telling us now has a direct application to our practices.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So
Totally
speaking of
agree.
that, because that could work as a new patient coming into a chiropractic office or someone approaching you for laser, this copious information that's out there, it could work both ways. How have you found and how do you battle with people that have misinformation about the device, let's say?
And that happens quite a bit because a lot of that is due, I think, in large part to companies' marketing, where and we all know marketing, it can be very effective. It can sometimes be misleading too. And so sometimes they come and they say, I heard this particular wavelength was the best one, but they can't back it up. And when they say, I saw it in an ad or this company markets this type of laser.
Or a guy told me.
A guy told me, right? I heard from a friend of a friend. Then, you just try to talk them off the ledge a little bit and counteract that with what you know is researched and true. And people are pretty logical. They start off emotional, but they really want to be logical. So if you can explain and show them the truth and the research, then they want it. They're happy.
Do you have techniques that keep them from going on the defensive right away?
I listen. I listen. People want to be heard.
What'd you say? I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
Do you ever say to yourself, let me get to this garbage and listen to this and then I'll correct them? Or?
Never.
Yeah.
I never have a bad thought.
And if you put it all together, you're really describing almost the perfect podcast on communication skills. That's what you're saying.
That's a good point.
You're putting it through all the ideals of being an effective communicator.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And I that's what sales is, because it's not, you're right. You're absolutely right, Mark. A lot of people think sales is a numbers game, and to a point it is, because the more you get out there, the more you talk to people, you're bound to have a proportionate amount of closes. But I think that, especially with where we are today in AI and knowledge and all this research, people still want a relationship. And so if you can build a relationship and convince people that, you care about them, you care about their needs, you're going to try to help them, you promise a certain product and you deliver it, because that's where it falls short. So it's not just the numbers game, and it is communication, because you need to convey who you are and what you stand for, and then you have to deliver it.
And any doctors out there listening to this podcast, if you took just what she said and exchanged the word product for service, it's the perfect formula for an effective practice methodology.
Interesting. Yes, I agree.
So a couple of quick questions as a salesperson. I think I might know some of these answers, but cold call or warm lead?
They're both, it depends. And I'll probably have to answer almost everything with it depends, because there are so many variables. A cold call is helpful, because even if you don't close the sale, you have expanded your footprint. And even if Paul, if I came to your door and showed you the laser and you said, well, gee, Deb, this is great, but I retired 10 years ago and I'm going to Tahiti and I really don't need anything.
Get out or I'll throw a chair at you.
Before you did that,
yeah,
I would have to ask you, now that you know what we do and you've seen this laser, who do you know who might benefit from this? Do you have a peer, a friend, a family member who you think might like to hear about this? So a cold call can always open the door to expand your footprint.
And sometimes it's put in the vault that they may not need a laser now, but down the road it pops up and they go, I'm going to call Deb.
Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how many times I've talked with someone and it is literally years later before they finally say, I'm ready, or my sister needs something, or my daughter just graduated from veterinary school, and we're thinking about this. So yes, absolutely.
So you really can't be attached to the outcome of a cold call. You just know that it's putting energy in the right direction.
I think so. And then as far as a warm lead, typically those are from referrals. And so referrals are very strong advocates of us. And so they're already a step closer, and they already maybe have done some homework. And so they have different questions that they would ask. They're ready to take another step. And even if it's, as you had said, Mark, not now, that doesn't mean not ever.
I like it. Email or phone call?
Oh gosh, again, it depends. I guess I would have to say, oh boy,
Mhm.
a phone call, you have the benefit of hearing the person's voice, hearing their inflection, and you can have a natural conversation, which wouldn't happen the same way in email. On the other hand, email, you can put together an email at night and then go to sleep and then wait for the answer in the morning.
Yeah.
So email is easier.
Do you
But I
find
prefer
what
the
we
phone call.
find that one, it's hard for someone to get someone to open an email, and then two, for them to actually like read through the email.
Yes.
Like they're both really challenging.
Yes.
Yeah, let me ask a question. I'll preface it with just I teach an X-ray course for chiropractic assistants in North Carolina. My last class, the age of the students were from 23 to 57. And of course, I asked the question, what do you prefer, live or virtual? And of course, the 23-year-old said virtual. She said, except for 2 years in high school, my last 2 years of high school and my 4 years of undergrad were all virtual. And of course, the 57-year-old said live. And now with your experience where you really are in both worlds, you do the virtual every month
Mm-hmm.
and you do live. And understanding that we're of the genre and age that that probably would be more toward the live as a preference. But what's your experience?
I too prefer live, and yet I see the market as the market is younger. You know, they prefer texting and virtual,
Mm.
but I it still will not ever take the place of a relationship. So sometimes you have to try a little harder to build a relationship in those circumstances. I do find that cold calling, there's less competition cold calling now than there was years ago, because there's, because people are they're doing business online and virtual. So sometimes you stand out a little bit more when you cold call because, gosh, they don't get those people too much.
It's like sending a piece of mail instead of an email now, right? Junk mail there's
right.
less junk mail.
Now it's less of them, so it stands
Yeah.
out more.
That's exactly right.
Mhm.
When I have a new customer, I always send a handwritten thank you note. And I can't tell you how many times people have actually texted me a picture of it saying, I got your note. Thank you.
Wow.
Only one person got annoyed with me and said I should have saved the tree.
Okay. No comment. So these might be the same thing, but I'm going to put it out there. Sales pitch or product demo?
Product demo is preferable because if you can give anyone the experience firsthand, then they have, it's really more embedded in their mind, and then they've tried it, they've experienced it. But again, because we deal with people all over the world, and so sometimes you can only have that sales pitch. So you've got to be careful about communicating the features and the benefits of the laser and the different conditions that it can treat and the ease of use.
Do you have different sales pitches depending on your audience or your profession that you're in front of?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know they're called pitches, but they're really introductions. And every audience, every market is different. And so people will always ask me, Deb, what's your elevator pitch? I don't have one. I really don't. And for me to try to put one together, I have to say, well, who am I speaking with? So it's all about relationship. It's about communicating and making the bridge to that person. So, who is this person? What do I know of them? Do I know what their needs are? Even something as simple as budget, but it's important to know who you're addressing and then try to
Know your audience.
make that bridge. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I love sales. It's relationship. I meet so many interesting people. It's wonderful.
But you had said something way early in our conversation where you said that there are certain characteristics and attributes that just can't be taught. So not everybody is good.
She was looking at you the whole time she said that. I don't know why.
Again, so not everybody is necessarily good at sales. Even though they might have had extensive training, there's still an innate characteristic about certain people that are just great at it.
I think that's true of every profession.
Mm-hmm.
I could have been trained as perhaps a chiropractor, but I may not have been as talented as you are, or a massage therapist.
Now she looks at me. I like that one.
I'm trying to redeem myself.
Yeah.
Good job.
And so I think qualities of a salesperson, they have to be a bit of a risk taker. I love what a very long-term former sales manager said, that I had no fear. I thought that was quite a compliment. Calm under pressure, grace under pressure, and the ability to communicate. I think putting people at ease. Sometimes that's conversational. Sometimes it's body language that, you just put people at ease, because we all know we've been in the presence of people that they're wired and they're fidgety, and it's kind of hard to relax with them and get rid of the noise of that.
Do you put the laser on them first? Hey, let's just try this first. Get you calmed down a little bit.
I'm going to do that next time.
Yeah. So here's the question then. If you weren't in sales, what would you have done as a career?
Again, I love my journey. I wouldn't have changed anything. But what I could see myself doing is, I love presenting. I love educating. I'm not a teacher. I couldn't work in.
I'm going to push back on that, Deb, because you taught a laser class for us at one of our conferences.
Yes, I did.
And you did an awesome job. It was wonderful feedback. So you may not feel like you're an educator or presenter, but you certainly did a wonderful job.
But education is certainly a major component of sales.
It is.
Yeah.
And I love that. I used to love being in the front of the room and presenting and demonstrating. It was quite a lot of fun. And
do you still like that, or?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Well, I don't know about everybody else listening out there, but I was enlightened on the ins and outs of sales today.
Oh gosh, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but thank you.
So
Thank you.
somebody who's got the sales bug and they're starting out, what kind of advice would you give that person?
Great question. There's so much, but two key points come to mind. One, believe in what you do, and you will always believe that you can do it. And I think that helps. I think that helps with being motivated at the end of the day. And if you do get, as you said earlier, Paul, a door slammed in your face, or a phone slammed down in your ear, you're doing the right thing. You've got a good product you can get behind. You know you can do it, and you'll do it again. The other piece of advice I think is super important, and I would say find a company like Tools of Practice, Mark, Paul, and ally, network, because we open doors for each other. You're very good for my image. You have a lot of give me a lot of credibility, and a lot of an outlet to show our education and to showcase our laser, and of course you have wonderful events. So I would say those two are super important.
Have you seen live events? Because you exhibit a lot. Have they declined in number, the amount of volume of live events, or have they just declined in attendance?
The events are still ongoing, but I find a lot of people are doing virtual. They have a virtual component, a live stream component.
With people in person.
Yes.
Where do you think that void will get filled, or how? Because a lot of exhibitors, some people know that our Synergy conference isn't happening, but we're doing a series of one topic.
Right.
But the exhibitors have felt the void, like yourself and others, that, it was a great place to come and present an exhibit. So where do you think that industry is going as far as these in-person events, and where exhibitors or companies can find a way to get in front of people?
That's a really great question. I do know, as an exhibitor, even the smallest conference I could possibly be at, I still have more success. I mean, how else can I see in face-to-face 12, 20 people in one day? I can't possibly knock on all those doors and see the right person, the decision maker, the owner of the company, the person who would be using the laser. So I don't care how small they get, they're still extremely valuable. But as far as where they're going, doctors need to keep their licenses up. They need credits. All of these, organizations, persuasions need credits. And so as long as that's the case, they have to come. And again, it's all about that personal touch. So however you can make it personal and speak to their personal needs, rather than just a credit for the sake of a credit. But honestly, if I had that answer, I'd probably go into coordinating events.
Yeah. Then we call you.
That would be my next.
Yeah, if we had the answer, we wouldn't have asked the
Hey,
question.
you're the chiropractor. Why don't you tell us why doctors aren't coming out anymore?
I believe it's generational at this point that most of these younger docs have grown up with the ability to learn online, and it's hard to say, it makes sense to go and in person, give up a whole weekend or a day or whatever, and show up when I can do the same thing and not have to be somewhere. I'm a perfect example. I'm on a licensing board in Massachusetts that meets every month virtually. I'm not sure I'd be able to do it if we had to get in the car and drive into Boston and spend a whole day for a 2.5 hour meeting.
Interesting.
So it does open up doors and closes doors all at the same time. So,
I think if you can keep it to one day or consolidated so that people have maybe less hotel expense, less expenses, and they can maybe justify.
Can't even talk about expenses. They're off the charts.
I bet.
So aside from the desire to be there, a lot of times they just can't afford to be there. Or even from an organizational perspective, putting them on has become easily twice the expense, which means you have to pass that on to the participant, which now makes it harder for them to want to be there for other reasons other than the material being presented.
Sure.
So,
yeah. So this is the members moment portion of our podcast where we like to talk to our members. And so I think we're going to take this moment to give our members and those listening, not just our members, how do they find you? They like what they hear. They want to know more about PBM therapy and the Avant laser. How do they get a hold of you?
I would love an email and referencing your podcast to deb.zolla@avantwellness.com. And that's ZOLLA, deb.zolla@avantwellness.com. And let me know what your question is. I'm so happy to assist and have that conversation.
thank you.
And if they want to join our monthly webcasts for Avant PBM and Avant Education, you can go to toolsofpractice.com, click on the events tab. And of course, if all this was like, I didn't hear any of that, go to allthingschiropractic.com and you can send us a message through there and we'll get it to Deb if we need to. And so we always like to conclude with some words of wisdom, even though I thought I've heard a lot of wisdom coming out of you, Deb, only. No, just kidding. So to those chiropractors out there, the docs or the staff or the associate doctors listening, any words of wisdom, anything at all you'd like to impart or say?
Yeah, this is from a David Singer seminar. A lot of doctors are familiar with David Singer. And he said that anytime a modality will give you patient referrals, give you patient visits, and add services or product for those patients, then any one of those is worthwhile. But with laser, all three of them are there. So laser is tried and true. If you've not considered it before, it's absolutely worth considering. It's easy, it's affordable, and you use it for your patients and your home. So another doctor had said you buy your laser for yourself and your family, but your patients pay for it. And that is so true. I've had a customer who's a legend. She paid for her laser in 1 week. And that's
Wow.
crazy.
Wow. Maybe she can do a course for us.
Well, she sold packages, and so she
Uh,
sold some packages. She
yeah.
pre-sold packages,
Yeah.
and they continued to sell packages, and so that was incredible. A lot of people will pay off in a month, and then some just take their time, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to actually end with one of the best quotes I've ever heard, ever.
It was for me, right? I'm pretty sure.
I'm going to end with one of the quotes that are the best quotes I've ever heard, ever. And no, it wasn't from you. It said,
He means baby.
believe in what you do and believe you can do it.
Oh,
Deb Zolla. That says it right there.
that's
I love
great.
that.
Thank you.
You know, in the back of my mind, I'm going to edit this podcast and put the music on right before you say that. Then what did he say?
All things chiropractic.
You have to go pbmt.info for the answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Only members
Love
get the answers.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. You are our first guest. You are wonderful. We just really can't thank you enough for coming in and having a chat.
I am so pleased to be here, and honestly, what an honor. Thank you for letting me be part of your podcast.
It was
wonderful.
fun. Thank you.
You both, Mark.
Well, thanks again for listening to another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
And Dr. Mark Davini. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to All Things Chiropractic. We'd love to hear from you. Visit allthingschiropractic.com with comments, episode ideas, or questions. Or connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at All Things Chiropractic Podcast. Be sure to join Dr. Mark Davini and Paul Andrews next time for another episode of All Things Chiropractic.